She walked into the dealership in jeans and a plain white t-shirt. Curious about a luxury car, she approached the salesman with a smile. But instead of respect, she was met with scorn. He looked her up and down, sneered, and said, "I think you're in the wrong place. These vehicles start at $300,000. Laughter echoed from other staff. Customers stared. Her face flushed, not from shame, but from the pain of being judged so quickly. And without a word, she left. The very next morning, however, a gleaming Rolls Royce Phantom pulled up outside the same dealership. When the chauffeur opened the door, jaws dropped. The salesman had no idea the lesson that was about to unfold. Inside, Boston luxury motors gleamed with wealth. Porsches, Bentleys, Ferraris, symbols of power most could only dream of. But for Margaret Collins, Maggie, this place wasn't about showing off. It was about her sister, Carolyn, who had survived breast cancer. Maggie wanted to gift her the car she had always dreamed of. She had the means. At 35, Maggie had built a foundation for children with disabilities that changed thousands of lives. She was wealthy, respected, and deeply kind. But because of her simple clothes, none of that was visible, and that was all the salesman chose to see. Blake Thompson, the sales manager, prided himself on spotting serious buyers. When he saw Maggie's sneakers and plain t-shirt, he smirked. He didn't see her heart. He didn't see her success. He only saw someone he thought didn't belong. "Good morning," Maggie greeted a young salesman named Daniel, who welcomed her politely. But before she could say another word, Blake cut him off. "I'll handle this." With fake politeness, he asked if she was looking for directions. But Maggie's eyes had already landed on the midnight blue azure coupe. "Actually, I'd like to know more about that one," she said. Blake's tone hardened. "That car is appointment only. Perhaps you'd be better off checking our used cars, down the street." When she persisted, asking to see the interior, he lied. But the moment a wealthy-looking couple entered, Blake's attitude changed. The very same car suddenly became available. Maggie stayed calm. "I'd like to buy this car. Cash. Today." Blake laughed, loud and sharp. "Cash? This isn't a yard sale. People who can afford these cars don't dress like you." The showroom went silent. Even the owner sided with Blake. "Bring proof of funds, and dress appropriately next time," Blake said coldly. "These cars are for a certain class of people." Humiliated, Maggie walked out. But she wasn't finished. That evening she told her husband, Alexander Collins, about what had happened. He was a billionaire tech visionary. But Maggie wasn't seeking revenge. "I can walk away," she said. "But what about the people who can't? The ones judged, dismissed, and humiliated daily? Someone has to show them that worth isn't written on a price tag or on clothing." Alexander agreed, and together they made a plan, not for vengeance, but for awareness. The next morning, the dealership froze when Alexander's custom Rolls Royce arrived. Blake rushed to greet him, overflowing with fake charm. "Welcome, sir. How can we help you today?" Alexander's reply was sharp. "I'm here for the Azure Coupe, midnight blue. My wife came yesterday, but you refused to help her." Margaret Collins, jeans and a white t-shirt. Ring a bell? Blake's face turned pale. Daniel, the young salesman, bravely spoke up. She was treated unfairly. She was polite and clear about what she wanted. She was dismissed only because of how she looked. Alexander's voice carried through the silent showroom. "My wife has raised millions for children with disabilities. She chooses to live simply, because true worth isn't measured by appearance." Yet here, she was humiliated. The owner tried to apologize, but Alexander had conditions. "I was ready to purchase a fleet, 7 corporate cars plus my personal collection. But now, I wonder if this dealership deserves my trust. If you want my business, your sales manager will volunteer at my wife's foundation. He'll work with the very children she fights for every day, and your entire team will undergo training on bias and respect." Blake's pride shattered. Daniel, meanwhile, was given the honor of handling the sale. And just like that, Maggie's quiet dignity had spoken louder than Blake's arrogance ever could. Weeks later, at the Collins Foundation Gala, children with disabilities danced and laughed under glowing lights, and among the volunteers was Blake. No tie, no arrogance, just a man learning what true value looked like, because in the end, money doesn't define worth. Kindness does. And maybe that's the lesson we all need to carry. Never judge a book by its cover. So let me ask you, if you were Maggie, would you have walked away quietly? Or would you have come back to teach them a lesson they'd never forget? Stories like this remind us how dangerous assumptions can be. And there are many more stories, real and powerful, that expose these truths. Make sure you stay with us for the next one.